Hey y'all, thank you for joining me on another video. Um, I wanted to hop on and talk about grief. Tomorrow is Father's Day, and as I've talked about on here before, my father was definitely not the best. A lot of things um, were in play in how he raised me and my sister and how he treated us. Um, Partially because of when he was born. He was born in the 30s. And partially because he was abandoned by his parents, basically. Though his father was in his life way more than his mother was. Um, so that whole dynamic, you know, was put into play in how he treated my sister and I. And he died back in '04, and Father's Days weren't really rough for me after that. I mean, but for whatever reason this year, it's been kind of tough. I don't know whether it's because it's close to a traumaversary that I've gone through, or, this year I went through things, worked through things in my childhood that maybe I didn't think about until now. The hardest thing for me was singing on social media, if you miss your father, I'm with you, type stuff about people grieving their father on Father's Day who's no longer here. And one particular person I follow on Instagram made a comment about that, saying, if you're grieving your father, I'm here for you. Let me know how I can pray for you. And she and I have interacted on a couple of occasions. So I messaged her and said, I am not grieving my father. I'm grieving the father I never had. And I guess I typed that in like on autopilot. Um, and then after I typed it, I sent it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is what's been going on with me lately. I am grieving the father that I wish I had had. He was never the protector that most daddies are. We did have some good memories that I hold on to, mainly because of my sanity. Hold on to that so I don't completely grieve the time I had him. I grieve the love I never felt. I knew he loved me and my sister. I mean, admittedly, he loved us about as much as he was capable of. Um, his grandmother treated him very well, loved him dearly, but she was also scared that one day his mother would come back and want him back, so she basically spoiled him in hopes that if that ever happened, he would choose my great grandmother over his mother, my grandmother. And in retrospect, I'm also wondering if my grandmother was abused um, by her husband, because my father rarely ever talked about um, my great grandmother's husband, his his grandfather. Rarely ever talked about his grandfather, except in passing or um, when it came to talking about World War II. My grandfather, my father's father, was in the war, and my great grandfather was working for the local newspaper at the time. So my father talked about how they would get their news through my great grandfather and stuff like that, but never any um, good memories. He had all kinds of good memories with my great grandmother. And so I'm starting, in retrospect, seeing all of this, and because of my healing journey, understanding a little bit better how, my father never got what he wanted or didn't get as much as he needed. He, like I said, he was abandoned by his parents basically. Um, he saw his father often, as near as I can tell from the stories my father told me. Um, but my grandfather was a musician, and so he was always on the road. To my knowledge, until my father was an adult and married with 2 kids, my grandmother never came to see him. She lived in a different state. And it saddens me for him. I don't excuse how he treated my sister and I, because he should have let how his parents treated him as a need, as use it as a desire to get better. And he didn't. He was spoiled. He was narcissistic. Do I think he had the actual disorder? No. He lacks a few things that the actual disorder entails. But he was narcissistic. And because he was like that, when I met my ex, any red flags that came up, I didn't even notice, because that's how I was raised. That's how my father was. So it was like no big deal. Looking back, I still, in looking back, when we first got together and got married, I didn't notice any red flags. It was not until about 2 years of marriage that looking back, I could see it. But I didn't know that they were red flags, because again, how I was raised with my father. And so this year, 20 years almost, it'll be 20 years this year that he's dead. And I'm just now grieving his death. And that's what I want to talk about, is because here it is 20 years and I'm just now starting to really grieve. But I'm not really grieving his death as much as grieving what I never had. Grieving what I so wished for, what my sister and I so wished for. My sister was blessed and was able to get that from my stepdad. And he tried with me, but I was going through so much with normal teenage stuff, as well as feeling conflicted, because I love them both. And of course, my biological father made me feel guilty. And so then I felt guilty. It's like, no, I can't love him. So I pushed him aside. And, we didn't understand the dynamics of blended families like we do now. I mean, this was back in the 70s. So we didn't understand that dynamics like we do now. And so I didn't get that nurturing and that love and attention and protection that a dad typically does with their child. My father was definitely not protective. And I think that's part of it is because the anniversary of the rape was yesterday, the 14th. And he never protected me when he could have. Obviously, this individual that raped me, he stalked me. I am convinced he had been stalking me for at least a month or two before the rape, just because of circumstances. And the day that everything happened, my father had gone to work, and I had called him. We didn't even have a phone. He didn't see the need in it. It did not occur to him that the phone would be good for me for protection to call the police. So he just didn't want to be bothered with it because he never got any phone calls. So he didn't see the need for it. Mainly because it aggravated him that I was getting a lot of calls. People would call me all the time, friends. And that aggravated him, so he just never paid the bill. He just had a service taken out. I went to a neighbor's that night and I told him, I said, look, I feel like I really need to get out of the house. Let me go sleep at my friend's. No, you stay home, you're always out. But I want to go. Let me go. No. He had a fit. So I didn't go. Never mind that I was in my 20s. I was living under his roof. I abide by his rules. And so I didn't go out that night. I didn't go stay at a friend's. And that's when this individual broke into my house and raped me. And the thing that aggravated me the most was he started acting like the victim. Like he I can't believe this happened to you, and I should have protected you. Yeah, you should have. But I realize now that it was all show. It definitely was not genuine. He didn't take measures to secure the house even before that. There were other incidences. Our house had been broken into 3 or 4 times that year by hooligans, and we pretty much knew who they were, just couldn't prove it. And not once did my father try to protect me, try to secure the house to make it harder to break into, to want to keep me safe. All he was thinking about was old rifles he had that were given to him by one of his grandfathers and one of his uncles. That's what he wanted to protect. And I wish that I had gotten the protection he wanted to give those rifles and anything in the house that was his. That's what I wish I had had. That's the protection I wish I had. The favor he gave me, because I was somewhat favored by him, it was only because he could manipulate me. Because he took advantage of situations I was in when I was married and my kids were young, and my ex wasn't working or wasn't getting paid enough, wasn't working enough hours. And so my father, to his credit, helped us out a lot, as did my mom. My mom helped as much as she could in the name of her grandkids, and I'm grateful for that. And my father paid my rent for over a year when my ex refused to work. He claimed he had a nervous breakdown and couldn't work, but in retrospect, is he didn't feel like working. And because the reason I say that is because just when I decided to take advantage of him not working, and I went to school to become a cosmetologist. That was my dream. And I figured, what better time while my father is helping out with rent and stuff. And then a month before I was to finish all my hours and be able to go for my license, my cosmetology license, that's when my ex decided to get a job. And I had to quit because our youngest was 3 years old at the time, and there was nobody to watch her. So I had to quit. But the thing is, my father only helped us because he knew that would give him a stronghold over me. He knew that would make me feel obligated to help him and do things for him, like his laundry, because he didn't have a washer and dryer in his apartment, so I had to go to the laundromat. He didn't feel like going to the laundromat, so he would have me do his laundry and wash his dirty clothes, which was gross. And he had me do his groceries. He'd write out a list, give me the money, send me in there to do the groceries. And then I'd have to take them in and unload them for him. And he knew that if he helped me, it would put me under obligation. Because there were times I would be off of school for the day. It would be like a Saturday, and I would use that day to try to catch up on the house because, of course, my ex wasn't doing anything. And he'd just randomly drive up and say, "Come on, girl, get in. I need your help." I got the kids with me. The kids are home. I want to get stuff done around the house. Yeah, but I need you. But my house needs me. I want to spend time with my kids. I don't care, I need you. I help you out. This is the least you could do for me. What was I going to do? He was right, and we needed the help. I didn't want him to stop helping me because I wouldn't help him when he wanted me to. Because he could have always waited. He would just get in his mind, I think I'm going to do this and this today. I'm going to pick her up. Wouldn't even call me. Because I had a phone, he had a phone. It was amazing. He had a phone when he was alone. But, he could have called me at least and told me. But no, he'd pull up, wouldn't even come out the truck. He would honk the horn. Come on, girl, let's go. And I'm grieving what I never had. And yeah, it's been 20 years since he died. That last year, I barely talked to him. I think I talked to him twice that entire year. I had gotten to the point where I needed to distance myself from him. And the last time I had talked to him was right before he died. Something told me to call him for Thanksgiving, and I called him for Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving was late that year. And then, not even a week later, he passed away. So I was so grateful that I called him. And, but grief is not a timeline where, okay, after this many days or this many years, you're done. It can surface after even 20 years. And that's what it's doing. Now I'm handling it way better than I would have had this come up 4 or 5 years ago, because of going to therapy and getting the tools and knowing how to handle things like this. But ultimately, what I want to say is, let yourself grieve. Even if it's been 20 years, grieve that relationship that you wish you had had. Because there are times I still grieve my marriage, what I thought I had, what I thought, excuse me, what I thought that I had married. There's no timeline. Things will pop up after 20 years, just like they're doing me. Hopefully you'll have a very blessed Father's Day, whatever that entails for you. Stay safe and be blessed.